Hey everyone, this is Nitro. So, I've been asked repeatedly about who benefits from getting the first level awakening to get 6 skill points in total. So, I thought I would do a video covering that and explaining my logic why. And in truth, from what I've seen, there's really only just, I would say, 5 heroes who could truly benefit from having 6 skill points without having their 3 cost skill from their second awakening. So obviously the top priority in my opinion is to get the characters who have awakening skills their awakening, and then after that you would focus on other characters in general. So as a result, the characters you want to focus on are these, because they get their 3C skills unlocked. And keep in mind that the awakening skills are unlocked once per month. So we just had batch number 1 with Luna, Matthew, Rachel, and Gerald and Layla. Batch number 2 should occur around March 12th, and it gives Leon, Chris, Cherie, and Estelle. Batch number 3 is Wilder, Sumere, and Sonia. And then batch number 4 would be Angelina, Landius, Lifany, Hein, and Juggler. So the reason batch number 4 had 5 heroes rather than 4 is because for batch number 3, Juggler was originally supposed to be there, but when he was initially, I guess, play tested, they realized Juggler's 3C skill was too overpowered, and so he got delayed into batch 4. So we'll see what happens for international server. He might appear in batch 3, or he might be delayed anyways to batch 4. But clearly you're going to have to focus on upgrading the characters that you use first, because the 3C skills can be pretty important in terms of flexibility. Right? Now, with that said, you do get 1 item per day, and each of these upgrades only uses 5 of the specific items. So you can say effectively you get, let's say, 30 items per month, and you're only using 20 of them. So you can upgrade 2 additional characters to their first awakening level every single month, right? In addition to the characters who have those 3C skills. So that's why I'm creating this video, to talk about the other characters who could use the extra skill point. So let's jump back into the game, and I'm going to talk about the characters that I think benefit the most. And there's only 5 of them, okay? And all 5 are pretty much situational. The first one, who would absolutely benefit the most, and there's no reason not to get it, is actually Sumere, right? And the reason why it's so good for Sumere is actually quite simple. With that extra skill, Sumere will be able to bring Strike for extra movement range, and both of her AoE skills. So she can bring Phoenix Dance as well as Butterfly Dance. And in addition, Strike will also allow her to reduce the cooldown on those skills. So it's just pure benefit overall with Sumere. Of course, to do so, you will be giving up probably the counterattack 1-point skill, which increases your attack value by 12% when you're attacked. But overall, I think it's a worthwhile skill to give up. So, Sumere, clearly the one character that benefits from having 6 points with almost no drawbacks. Okay. The second character who benefits as well is another tank. In this case, it's actually Vargas. The reason why Vargas benefits is traditionally Vargas's 1-point skill is usually Battle Cry, right? And Battle Cry allows him to dispel a buff on the enemy and decrease the enemy's attacking defense by 10% when attacking. Well, you can choose to replace Battle Cry with the Armor Pierce skill if you have 6 points. So, because your 2-point skills are always Unbreakable Guardian and Power Stab, right? And then if you bring Armor Pierce, when you use Armor Pierce, it actually can decrease the enemy's defense by 30%. So it's a very nice skill to have, right? And that's why it falls under the useful skills category. Will there be battles you want Battle Cry over Armor Pierce? Of course. The ability to dispel a buff from the enemy can be huge. So there will be battles where you will still use Battle Cry. But in general, I would say Armor Pierce would be a more useful skill in most fights. Yeah. And then finally, there is also the choice of bringing attack Intimidate to reduce the defense. Sorry, to reduce the attack and int of all enemies within the 2 surrounding blocks by 15%. So Vargas is one of the characters who can definitely benefit from having 6 points. The drawback, of course, is do you use Vargas as your tank, ultimately? Yeah. Because there are a lot of other tanks now in the game that are preferred, like Lenin, Landius, Juggler, and Imelda. Okay. The next 3 characters who can benefit quite a bit all have exceptions, though. I should mention that. Okay. The third character who can really benefit a lot is Lanford. Okay. So, the reason why Lanford benefits is because his 1C skills are solid, but not 100% required. I'm just trying to find where my Lanford is, because he should be lower, because I haven't really leveled him up, but I don't seem to see him. Ah, all the way down here. Okay. So, why can Lanford benefit? Well, Lanford's 1-point skills are really just the following. They are Defense Break, to reduce the enemy's defense by 20%. You have a 50% chance of doing so. You can have Blast, where when you're attacking and your unit hit points is above 80%, damage taken is reduced by 30%. And the other one that's usually, the one that's most commonly used is Mind's Eye, where your crit chance is increased by 15%, and if you land a crit hit in battle, enemies' passive skills are disabled, and it lasts 2 turns. Well, ultimately, Mind's Eye does not increase your damage unless you, except in the case of increasing your crit chance to have a higher chance of crit hitting, right? The only one that truly increases damage effectively, you can say, is Defense Break. Okay, but that's first in Lanford's side branch, and second, if you bring someone else with a guaranteed defense reduction, like Leon with Smash or Vargas with Armor Pierce, you're not going to need this Defense Break at all. You know? So as a result, and then if, let's say, you have Leon, if you have Vampire Mask on a lot of characters, that can also apply the Defense Break. So there's even fewer reasons to bring this Defense Break skill, right? So as a result, Lanford can benefit from having 6 points as a result, because his 1C skills are not that great. He's one of the characters, one of the very few characters who doesn't have very good 1C skills. So as a result, you know, with 6 points, you can choose to bring, let's say, Chivalry, Chain Lightning, and Roar, or you can replace Roar with the faction buff that he has, like Ace Tactics. So, Lanford, one of the characters who can really benefit from the 3C. The next 2 characters I find who can benefit are very, very situational. Okay. The first one would be Elwyn. Elwyn is very, very situational because in general, this game is about one-shotting enemies and doing as much damage with every single strike that you can, right? In Elwyn's case, the maximum damage usually can be considered as coming from Crush, bringing the Crush skill, because it increases your attack by 12% when entering battle. This 12% increase, being a passive, should also affect the mass mates, soldiers, right? So it increases his attack, and then which means his damage is increased for the attack skills that he uses, and if the mass mates also benefit, or whatever soldiers he has also benefits from 12% attack increase, that also dramatically can affect the amount of damage Elwyn outputs. So generally speaking, the 1-point skill for Elwyn is Crush. Right? But Crush requires his side branch, Highlander, to get, and not everyone has the Rune Stones to get it. So if you don't have a Rune Stone to spare for Elwyn anytime soon, his 1C skill is usually Defense Break, as usual. And once again, if you have someone else to apply a guaranteed Defense Break effect, you don't want this skill. And as a result, you'd be better off getting his Awakening, his first Awakening, so you can have 6 points, and then maybe bring 3 attack skills as a result, right? So something like, you know, Sword Soul, Frontal Assault, Sun Slash, and Roar. Pick 3 of these 4. Right? I generally don't consider Elwyn a character that should bring a faction buff, because if you're going to use Elwyn, you know, you should be playing either Protagonist or Legion of glory, right? And then in that case, Lenin is more likely to be your faction buffer, so that Elwyn can endlessly attack. And or you might have Matthew as the faction buffer, so once again, Elwyn can endlessly attack. Right? So I don't really consider Elwyn a character who should bring a faction buff in general. So that covers 4 characters that I think really benefit from having the 6 skill point. And then the last character who can benefit only would benefit if she is not at 6 stars. And that character is Shafaniel. Right? At 4 stars and 5 stars, Shafaniel reduces the cooldown of any skills she uses by 2. Right? So that means if she's launching AoE attacks like Demolish, it actually has a 1-turn cooldown. Well, if you have that extra point in Shafaniel, she can actually choose to bring Desiccate as well as Demolish. And then with those 2 skills, she can endlessly launch out AoE attacks. Right? And then as for the last 2-point skill, you can choose to have her bring her faction buff. So, and this would make Shafaniel usable at 4 stars and 5 stars with endless AoEs. Right? At 6 stars, the cooldown of skills is reduced by 3. And in that case, just bringing Demolish by itself would be enough in general, or Desiccate by itself. And then you would bring her faction buff once again. And then the final 1 point would probably be reinforcements, most commonly. Right? So in that kind of situation, there's very little reason to bring to get her up to 6 points, unless for whatever reason you feel like you really should bring Heaven's Sanction as well. Or you would choose to maybe bring Cleanse, her starting skill, right, for single target strikes. Doesn't particularly make sense in my opinion, but it's all doable. The other thing to note, of course, though, is if you have someone else who can faction buff up Shafaniel, she doesn't need the 6 points, right? She can just bring the 2 AoE attacks that I mentioned, Desiccate and Demolish, and then someone else will faction buff her, such as Luna, or Landius, or Sigma, right? But overall, though, Shafaniel is one of the characters who could benefit from those having 6 points. Alright, so that covers really all the characters that I think would benefit the most. Okay. As for why other characters don't particularly benefit, I can kind of go over them one by one, but in general, it's simply because they have good 1-point skills. Okay. So let's start with Bozel. Bozel, the reason he is generally considered not worth bringing 6 points is because of the seal, right? Seal is so incredibly important for both PvP and even PvE, let's say Timeless Trials, right? So being able to silence the enemies is absolutely massive, and as a result, he doesn't particularly need that 6 points, right? If you're using a single target strike Bozel, he usually brings his faction buff, Dark Reaper, and Fireball. He doesn't have any other single target strike skill, so that's already the 5 points that you need, right? The only situations where you might even consider it is highly unlikely is if you wanted to bring, I don't know, let's say Earthquake, Black Hole, and Sleep, or Earthquake, Black Hole, and the faction buff, right? But once again, as I said, you're giving up the seal effect, and so it's a very rare situation where you would want a 6-point combo like that. So that's Bozel. Next is Lena. And Lena's great 1-point skills are simple. It's her single target strike skills. Both Freeze Strike and Lightning do 1.5 times damage with additional damage against Lancers and Cavalry respectively. Right? She also has, for 2-point skills, you generally bring either Dark Reaper with Black Hole or Heaven's Sanction, or just what I have right now, which is a single target strike skill and then 2 AoEs. Yeah. So the only kind of situation where she might want 6 points is if you wanted to bring Summon as well. Maybe like Summon Undead and then 2 AoE attacks, but I just don't see that being a very common build for Lena. in general for PvE and so on, you're going to want Lena to one-shot things, and that means Dark Reaper, Free Strike, and then a 2-point skill, whether it's a summon or an AoE, or even you bring another single target strike skill, which all of those skill combos though use less than 5 points. So yeah, it's just not very common that I see Lena would want to bring 6 points in skills in total. You know. Even if you wanted to bring Magic Defense Intimidate, for example, you would generally choose to bring 2 single target strikes like Free Strike, Dark Reaper, and Magic Defense Intimidate. So in conclusion, Lena just... the situations where she would benefit having 6 points is so rare that it's almost non-existent and not worth doing. Landius. Well, Landius is pretty much defined by Indomitable, allowing him to revive when he dies. So that right there kind of says it all, right? I have actually used Move Again for him in certain PvE battles, like Hugin and Munin. So sometimes you don't need to revive and you want Move Again. And Move Again allows him to do 10% increased damage when attacking, and act again after he attacks. So it's a nice little 1-point skill to have. So it's incredibly rare where I've also actually used counterattack before, just so he can get an extra 12% attack for when he counterattacks, right? So it's incredibly rare, almost unheard of, to have Landius use 6 points as a result. Yeah. Juggler? Well, Juggler already gets the effect of ignoring the cost limit of skills from Juggler's gift, so he truly doesn't need the Awakening. The only time you would want to get the Awakening for him is when he gets access to his second phase, his exclusive skill. Yeah. And that's because you want the exclusive skill, not because you want the 6 points. So, that's Juggler. Next, Listel. Listel has tons of useful 1-point skills. Once again, like Bozel, she has Seal. Incredible for PvE content, also quite strong in PvP in fact. She has Demon God's Bulwark to take magic damage for allies and self-heal. And she also does have the Bloody Deluge, which I've never really used, but it's also there, allowing her to reflect damage to the attacker and heal other allies. So, due to all those useful 1-point skills, it's incredibly rare, at least to me, that you would actually want to bring a 6-point Listel. I mean, theoretically, it could be something like Blood Dance, Mind Bore, and then Reaper's Touch, and then she can every single turn launch out a skill attack of some kind, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I just think it's highly, highly unlikely you want to build a Listel that way. Yulia. So, Yulia has Faith, which increases the damage she deals by 15% when attacking, and also can heal allies. So the combination of both of these effects is so huge that I don't see you ever wanting to replace Faith for another attack skill. You know? You could, I guess, but it's pretty low priority in my opinion. You know, you generally want Yulia to one-shot targets, and that 15% damage will be pretty important for that. So I just don't see a need for yet another attack skill on Yulia. Luna, well, she's one of the characters with already the 3C skill, so we can just pass that. Right? Elwyn I talked about, Tiaris, and all healers in general will almost always bring a heal spell. So that right there means they don't ever need the 3C, right? You're always going to bring a heal spell in general and then two 2-point skills. So I just don't think it ever comes to mind that you would want to 3C them unless you, for whatever reason, wanted mass heal with 2 other skills. I don't know. In any case, let's just move on. Leon. Leon has Legion for the increased 10% attack and defense, and that right there means you don't want 6 points. You know, if you're going to bring an attack skill, you're giving up on the Legion effect of 10% extra attack, which means each single target strike you do would have less overall damage output, right? You could bring, let's say, Assault and, I don't know, 1,000 Hooves with Chivalry, but that means each of those attacks would do less damage. And it's important to note that there are characters that I can barely kill with my Leon using Assault and so on. So giving up Legion, in my opinion, is not a good idea. Okay. Omega is pretty much defined by surprise attack, so he would never want to remove it, so having 6 points is useless. Rachel. Rachel has a 3C to start, right? She's one of the first phase ones, Runic Void. So right there, that means you would want to get her the 6 points, you know. In addition, she could actually benefit from it because she can choose to bring Dark Reaper, you know, Holy Word, and Arcane Blast occasionally. But more likely, you're probably going to bring that Runic Void for the AoE attack, which costs 3 points, and you end up with, you know, whatever, right? In addition, she just has so many useful skills in general. Gospel is incredibly useful. That's a 2-point skill. The only time where you might want to consider bringing a 1-point skill is A, Lightning Strike like I did, and B, potentially bringing Meditation so that she has an increased 10% int for her single target strikes, so that she can one-shot things better, right? But if you have a 6-star Rachel with 30% increased damage and so on, then from what I know, you generally don't need Meditation because you'll be able to one-shot even without it. In any case though, I mean, Rachel having a 3C skill means she's one of the top priorities to do the first awakening anyway, so we can kind of disregard it. Lenin. Lenin, I personally don't think needs a 3C, needs 6 points because of his Light Reflect. Okay, I should also mention that Lenin does get a 3C from what I know, but in any case though, the most important part of Light Reflect is the first effect, received heal effect plus 15%. It's because of this additional healing effect that Lenin can frequently heal back to full from healing light and so on, right? So that allows him to just keep taking hits and keep counterattacking with ridiculous amount of damage. So that's why I personally think Lenin doesn't really need 6 points. You can choose to give up Light Reflect for sure, and then choose to bring maybe Burning Sun, for example, to have Divine Guard last longer. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's really required for Lenin. When you see me use Lenin, I usually bring Vienna or Sophia or both, right? So with them in the battlefield as well, Lenin can almost always maintain Divine Guard anyways, even without having Burning Sun. So that's just my opinion of Lenin. I don't feel like Lenin's an attacker in general. He should be faction buffing and activating Divine Guard constantly. And then Light Reflect will increase his stats a bit and give him additional healing. Iris? Well, Iris generally tends to bring a heal spell, right? So that's why she generally doesn't get her 3C. But the interesting thing here is if you do bring it, right, she can technically heal via Dolly, right? 2 times int. Although it's much less than the 5 times int of heal, it gives you some versatility in terms of bringing maybe, like say, Mass Resist as a 3rd skill if you need it, or bringing, you know, Magic Defense Command or Mass Heal or whatever, right? So it is possible to give Iris 6 points and have her be more useful, but once again, I'm not 100% sure how well that would work out. You know, very frequently right now, I usually just run the teleport skill of hers, heal, and then either mass resist or mass heal. That's my most common build for her, anyways. It's pretty rare for me to run Dolly, in truth. So, in any case, so Iris has now been covered. Let's move on to the next character, Bernhard. Bernhard here is interesting because I generally tend to... Okay, Bernhard generally is used offensively, right? And then in that case, he usually brings Sword Dance and Rupture for fixed damage. Okay? And then that just uses 3 points. And then your final 2 points would probably be Faction Buff or Hegemony or Shield Bash. Okay? So, the thing about having him raised up to 6 points though, would be he could replace the Sword Dance, or sorry, replace the Rupture or Parry skill with maybe bringing Iron Fist, if Bernhard ends up being your tank for whatever reason. That would be the only reason to get him up to 6 points. Giving him 2 guard range rather than just 1 that of parry. But I think in general, Bernhard should be a Sword Dance attacker with Rupture. So I don't really think Iron Fist should be a skill that's brought on him. And as a result, I think the Sword Dance and Rupture combo plus one other 2-point skill is the way to go for Bernhard. And that's why I don't think he really needs that point either. Moving on. Young Jessica. She's pretty much defined by having her Divine Bestowment 1-point skill. So having 6 points is kind of useless for her. So we'll move on. Chloe. Healer usually brings the heal spell, so I don't really see her using, 3 2-point skills as a result. In addition, I should also mention she has faith, right? So if you're going to use an attacking Chloe, like bringing discipline, you're going to bring faith, which is another 1-point skill. So once again, I just don't see her being a character that really wants 6 points in total. Leonhard, pretty much defined by having either instant transfer or zero storm, so he really does not need 6 points. Even if he had 6 points, he only has 2 single target strike skills in the first place, right? Sun Slash and Air Slash. And in terms of AoE attacks, he has the Fusion Dark Emperor Sword and Ethereal Fire Machete. So the 1-point skills are used for sure on Leonhard. Moving on. Vienna pretty much always brings the heal spell. She also has, a lot of 1-point skills like Windblade, Freeze Strike, and Meditation. So I don't ever see a scenario where you would really want to use 6 points. The only scenario where that might happen would be if you wanted Act Again, you wanted Gospel, and then you somehow wanted maybe Prayer? I don't know. Or Mass Protect. That would be very weird. Not bringing a heal spell or a single target strike skill. Zerida. Zerida in general only just has 2 builds. The first build is what you see here, Shadow Raid, Obliterate for the faction buff, and then Backstab. The other build would be Killing Blow, Bloodthirster, and then Sly Stride. Okay. There are people who mentioned bringing Obliterate, Killing Blow, and Bloodthirster, but I think that's a ridiculously stupid combo to bring. And the reason I think that's stupid is because if you're going to use a Bloodthirster Zerida, you're going to want her to constantly attack every other turn. You do not ever want her to activate Obliterate, the faction buff, because that means that's just delaying a turn that she could be attacking the enemies with. So yeah, I just don't ever see a situation where you would want to use a Zerida without a 1-point skill. I suppose maybe if you did an Obliterate, Shadow Raid, and then Killing Blow Zerida, that would be incredibly weird though, once again. I don't see the point of doing that over Backstab. Or, if not Backstab, Sly Stride. Right. So that's Zerida. Shafina was covered. Imelda was not covered, but in general, I like to have her bring Free Strike. She has good 1-point skills, Regenerate and Free Strike. So, I don't see her using one. Alte Muller. Alte Muller has good 1-point skills, right? You can bring Gale to act again. You can bring Reinforcements so he heals after battle. So once again, I don't see you ever bringing 3 2-point skills. There is that option of a really weird build like Tactical Mastery, Raging Thunder, and Strong Arm. But that's just not a normal build for Alte Muller at the end of the day. So we'll move on. Hein. If you use a single target strike Hein, you're using all pretty much 1-point skills, right? Fireball, Lightning Strike, Cleanse maybe, but they're all low costs in general. The only time you might ever consider bringing 3 2-point skills was if you were going to bring a crazy number of AoEs, but I don't understand why you would ever use a crazy number of AoEs on Hein. You know, that would be something like, you know, Thunderstorm, Meteor, and Forget, and that's just not a combo Hein should be using. So yeah. Once again though, Hein does get a 3C later on, so you're going to get this later. Matthew starts off with a 3C, Sword of Destruction, so you're going to want to get it. It's that simple. But in terms of, if you're not using it at 5 points, you know, Roundabout, Faction Buff, and Attack Command is really his most common combo, right? So yeah, I mean, given that there's already this preset combo for Matthew more or less, you know, you're only getting this 3C for the Sword of Destruction skill in general. Or if you don't have Roundabout, you might use Gale or Move Again, you know, depending on your Matthew's secondary class. So he has good 1-point skills, long story short. Renee. Once again, Renee is kind of like Hein. She has tons of single target strike skills, and as a result, you don't particularly need 6 points on her. Once again, the only reason to ever have 6 points is if you wanted her to bring nothing but AoE attacks and Renee Annihilation. So it would be something like Decay, you know, Calamity Throw, and then Renee Annihilation, which once again is a very odd combo. Sonia gets a 3C, so when she gets the 3C, that's when you want to awaken her. You know, not much else needs to be said. You know, Blast is quite useful for her in general to reduce the damage she takes when attacking. Strike is important, and then an attack skill for additional damage. Until she gets her 3C, it's not particularly worth getting. In addition, she also does have ninjutsu, I should mention, right? So if you go into her side branch, you definitely want to bring the ninjutsu skill so she can ignore terrain. So that's Sonia. Diharto gets Move Again, which allows him to retreat after attacking and do more damage on his initial attack. Given this game is all about one-shotting characters, the Move Again effect is pretty important for 10% increased damage with every single strike that he does. Not much else needs to be said here, you know. I mean, there are interesting build Dihartos, like, you know, a Cavalry Calamity Throw Diharto with the Demon Hunters for soldiers and so on, so he can attack at 2 range or something. But that kind of build Diharto usually relies on having sneak attack as well to do fixed damage after battle to guarantee the kill. So once again, it's like, yeah. So you'll be like strike, you know, calamity strike, calamity throw, and then the 1-point skill is either Move Again or sneak attack. So there you go. Freya. Freya is about fixed damage, which means bringing the barb skill, which means she doesn't need the points. Sophia, I usually run 4 points on Sophia, right? I bring Rewind, and then Heal, and then Regenerate or Strengthen, so I don't see why she would need 6 points. Cherie is one of the characters that generally barely has enough damage to one-shot targets. So you generally want to bring Legion on her, right? In my case, you can see my Cherie brings Legion, Reinforcements, and Lightning Strike. So I just don't see why you would really want 6 points. I frequently see people bring, let's say, Shadow Raid, and then either Lightning or Lightning Speed, and then their 1-point skill still remains Legion. So that's Cherie. Doesn't need 6 points. Olivier has Aim, so doesn't need 6 points. Illustrial has 2 incredibly useful 1-point skills as well. They are Roundabout and Natural Warding, right? So given that's the case, she doesn't really need 6 points. it would be a very weird build Shifaniel to use 6 points. Maybe something like Neutralizing Fire, Skill Command, and then Emerald Crusher, so 2 attack skills, as well as Skill Command to buff up the skill of allies like Omega. But once again, very, very odd. I would say you can probably drop one of the attack skills, whether it's Emerald Crusher or Neutralizing Fire, to bring Skill Command. That's my opinion anyways. Moving on. So, Vargas was already talked about. Almeda. Almeda is generally a healer. You're generally going to want to bring heal. You know, I mean, theoretically, you could do like a ultimate quip plus tornado plus holy word Almeda. I don't know. You could, or maybe like dragon blow, 3 AoE attacks. I don't know, but in general, I would see you wanting the 1-point skills, whether it's meditation or heal. Narm has roundabouts. You're generally going to bring that, so you don't want you don't want 3C. In addition, she also has aim, and that's another skill that you frequently bring on her. Lifany, once again, Lifany also has aim, and that's usually the skill 1-point skill you want, right, to refresh the other skills and so on. Varna, aim, you're never going to not bring it, so moving on. Angelina. Angelina is the interesting one. I know she has Tidal Surge, which takes 2 points, right? So she can actually benefit. If you bring, let's say, Tidal Surge, Attack Command, and then you could bring Lightning for the 3rd skill point. So she can actually benefit from having it, but keep in mind that more frequently you're going to bring Alternate, right? So you're going to bring Tidal Surge, Alternate, and then either Attack Command or Dragon's Breath. Right? So as a result, I would generally say it's highly unlikely for Angelina to actually want to both Tidal Surge and Lightning. Gizaroff. I mean, to bring a 2-point skill, you'd have to give up the Summon Construct, and constructs are a pretty important part of using Gizaroff in general. So I don't feel like he really needs that extra point. You could, don't get me wrong, right? Then you can have Dark Dragon Breath along with Thunder Dragon Breath along with the faction buff, but it's a little bit odd, is what I would say. Emmerich, move again in general, also has, I think, the parry skill to guard allies, right? So does not need an extra skill point. And I think that pretty much covers every single character worth mentioning, right? The remaining ones like Chris, Egbert, Ferkia, you know, Geralt and Layla already has a 3C. You know, Kirikaze usually wants 100% crit, wants as much crit chance as possible, which means bringing Mind's Eye. Yeah, there's not very many heroes left to cover. I'm just going to ignore the remaining ones at this point, because I feel this video has already gone on for too long. You know, this is already 40 minutes of talk. So yeah, I mean, the remaining heroes you can kind of evaluate on your own if you use them. I would say the last one that's probably worth mentioning, because a lot of people use Joshua, is he's very much defined by ninjutsu, allowing him to ignore terrain to pass through it easily, and also get increased attack value as long as he's on terrain that increases defense. So to give up ninjutsu is generally not worth it for Joshua. And the other remaining heroes, yeah, I mean, they generally don't want 3Cs for whatever reason anyways. They usually have good 1-point skills. So there we go. Thanks for watching, everyone. I guess the most important information was like the first 13 minutes or so about the characters who can benefit the most. The rest was more just explanations of why characters don't necessarily need that extra skill point. You know, they could, but they're lower priority. So, on that note, Nitro out.